To order, is there a roll call, please?
Paul Kaufman.
Here.
Maria Davies is absent. Susan Edmondson.
Here.
Ruth Johnson.
Here.
Ryan Westcoat.
Present.
Kim York is absent. Kim Bailey.
Here. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just to let the audience know, Kim York was under the weather and Maria Davies had a work commitment that came up this afternoon, so.
Thank you. Our mission statement is preparing each student for a successful and meaningful life. And is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion passes. Is there a motion to approve the consent items?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Are there any public comments?
No, there isn't.
Okay, so now we are on informational items, guidance and counseling program review. Dr. Crystal Barr and Dr. Michelle Hoffman.
All right, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
All right, we're here tonight to share a little bit about our counseling program throughout the district. There we go. Several members sit on the team that works with our counseling program. Dr. Volker, Dr. Barr, and myself. We also have our counselor executive team, and that is comprised of representatives from all levels of our school system. Latasha Robinson is counselor representing elementary from Peculiar Elementaries, where she works each day. Jenny Beck is also on the committee from Raymore Elementaries, where she's housed. Piper Schoen represents our middle level. She's at South Middle. And then Cheryl Gray represents our high school component of our counseling group. We also, however, engage all of our counselors in the development of our counseling program, its review, and its ongoing conversations about it. Oops. All right, so the impact of our program is multifaceted, as it would be expected. Counselors support, in part, the academic, career, and personal, social, and emotional development of every student in our school district. They do that through their guidance curriculum, through individual planning with students, as well as responding to student needs through those responsive service options as well. Counselors see to our kids' physical needs as well, because obviously that can be carried over into the school day, and we have opportunity to be able to meet that need as well. And that also helps them perform and be ready to perform academically within the school setting. So that looks sometimes like organizing coat drives. They coordinate and facilitate that adopt a family effort. They help our students access the Caring About Nutrition program when there's food scarcity on the weekends. In addition, our counselors partner with Ray-Pec Cares, and that partnership is a significant one that not only helps those direct student needs, but also that whole family approach as well. Our counselors are our Building 504 coordinators, and they assist our kids who need to access additional supports to meet their academic needs in that area. Counselors provide support when they're intervening with really the multitude of effects that trauma can have within the school setting with regards to learning and sometimes that behavior, those emotional needs as well. Counselors have a curriculum that assists in those variety of areas, and that includes an emphasis on bully prevention, bully awareness, and suicide awareness and prevention efforts as well. So some of the highlights that we'd like to share are that district-wide we have over 60 support groups going currently that are available for our students to access, and that's K-12. That's approximately 509 kids throughout our district that were served last year through that form of targeted support based on their needs. Examples of groups, and again, there's a lot of them, but 4 of them are listed. Grief, anxiety and stress, friendship, and anger management are among some of the more common ones that we find are necessary to support our kids through those experiences and help them to be successful during the school day. Counselors access our guidance program using what's called the Missouri Model Guidance and Counseling Internal Improvement Review. In short, we call it the IIR. And that instrument helps us to assess and evaluate how we're doing in a variety of areas. Guidance curriculum itself, kind of the what we're going to cover, teach, and interact with kids on, individual planning with them for their needs, responsive services, as well as their system supports, whether that be through response to intervention, whether that be through, we sometimes call behavior student assistance team. There's a lot of that systematic development to provide proactive intervention for our kids that our counselors really help to develop. And that instrument provides us guidance on all 4 of those areas, including much more refined information about each of those. And Dr. Barr is going to share with you a little bit about our goals.
Good evening. So 2 years ago, when we were here for the program review, the goals that were set, there were 3. One was focused on the percent of juniors who had identified a career path. We wanted that to continue to increase. And so our goal was 75. In 2015-16, it had been 70, and happy to report that we've actually exceeded that. It was 87% of our juniors who have identified a career path, and that is this current junior class. So not too bad, considering we still have a few kids searching for what they want to do in life, but many of them have at least a path that they're looking at. We also had a goal that was talking about the percent of personal plans of study reviewed and revised with parents and guardians will increase to 80%. In 15-16, it was 75. It is 98, and I should say that the enrollment process was changed a little bit at the high school. And in the past, it was every parent was expected to come in to do an enrollment conference, and so that was kind of based on just how many people walked through the door. Students took the enrollment forms home and were trying to fill them out with their families, and sometimes, a lot of times, the enrollment forms would come back only partially filled out because the career education guide is quite challenging sometimes. There's a lot of offerings, and so they weren't really sure. So the high school restructured how they did enrollment. And so instead of that process, through advisory, students were filling out their personal plans of study, and then teachers and counselors were available to give advice or answer complicated questions like which math should I take if I've taken these math classes. So then what actually was sent home electronically to parents through email was a complete enrollment form instead of a partial one that did ensure that kids were enrolled in 7 credits. That's another big challenge for some of our families is we have half credit classes, whole credit classes, and you might get an enrollment form that has 5 credits worth or 10, just depending on how they were filling it out. So we reached 98% of the families in them having a personal plan of study. And then for families who still wanted that enrollment experience to talk to an advisor, that's who came in. And there was a select group of teachers who were kind of our enrollment experts. And so if I, as a parent, wanted to sit with my child and get more advice, maybe make some changes, that was an option. But if I was a family who was like, nope, this was good, then that wasn't a requirement. So the high school received much better feedback on enrollment last year under this new structure. So they feel like that was successful. And then our last goal was that district IIR. We wanted to increase that score to 80%. We did not reach that goal. We are at 76%, but the IIR also changed. So what happened with the IIR is they still have the same major components, but the indicators within, in many cases, they shortened the amount of indicators. So it's a very close comparison, but it's not an apples to apples comparison when you look at the 15-16 score and the 16-17. Nope. 50-50 shot, got it wrong. So here is our new revised scorecard. The district score on the IIR, we still want to try to reach that 80% and beyond, but we're going to shoot for 80%, hoping that the instrument stays consistent, so we will be able to have that apples-to-apples comparison. We have added, as a group, the percent of success-ready graduates. This is something that you're hearing about at the state level. I know Dr. Monsis has talked about success-ready graduates, and so we thought that this was a great place to include that measurement. So what we were looking at as far as what a success-ready graduate was is that a student leaves with some type of aid credential for their next step after high school. So that could be a qualifying AP, IB test score, dual credit, an IB diploma, a work key certification, or an industry recognized credential. It could be any of those options. So last year's senior class was at a 56% on that. And so we feel like that's a goal that we need to continue to strive for. I should note that when we say a qualifying AP and IB score, so it's a 3 or above in AP and it's a 5 or above in IB. So it's just not the kid gets a score, it has to set at a certain score, because those are usually the scores that end up allowing students to have some kind of college credit for that score. So we have more kids take that AP and IB, and we have more kids take an IRC, but this is only the ones who made a qualifying score on that. So we feel like we want to move that up continually, offer more industry-recognized credentials, continue to expand our academic offerings, continue to expand the amount of kids who do the work keys assessment, which I talked to you last month about on that right test, right kid. So we really feel like we can make some great gains on that. The percent of juniors who have identified a career path, we still want to keep that going and continue to increase that as much as we can, really honing in on what kids find their passion is for what they want to do after high school. And we also want to continue to doing the effectiveness of our support groups. Our counselors pick certain support groups that are more steady and have a pretty steady clientele, like grief and things like that. And they measure where the kids feel the effectiveness is. And the measurements include things like, I pulled one for, I have skills to help me deal with feelings from losing a loved one. So it's very skill-based. I feel like I have skills. And they do a pre and a post to see where kids were at the beginning of the group and where they were after. The effectiveness of priority curriculum lessons is very similar too. They don't do it on every curriculum lesson, but they do it on priority ones. In this case, it was our bully prevention lessons that we did that on, and it's the same thing. It's a pre and a post, and it's given to students, and it asks them things like to rank themselves on, I have strategies to use if I see someone being bullied, or define bullying, and it gives some options. And so based on how the kids answer is where we get our ratings on that. So the new goals for our group is by the end of the 18-19 school year to increase that IIR to 80%. Our second goal is to continue to increase the effectiveness of those priority curriculum lessons, and our focus is going to continue to be on the bully prevention lessons in particular to a 3.6 average, and then to increase that percent of graduates who are considered success ready to 76%. Our exec team meets quite a bit, and they're a great group of team. They not only help with this, but they help with deciding professional development for our counselors, which has become more and more focused on their craft, which has been very well received from that group. They focus on wanting to continue to focus on those support services for students, a continued focus on college and career readiness, looking to utilize the system of care group as an advisory council also for our counselor program, so kind of meshing those since we have several counselors on our systems of care group. And then continued professional development that is specific to counselors. Several years ago, that wasn't the case, and so they really enjoy that specified professional development and think that it has really helped them in their job. Questions for either myself or Dr. Hoffman?
How do we interact or how do we parallel with parents on these support groups?
So if a student expresses an interest or a staff member says, hey, I think Johnny just lost his dad, then a permission we have to have written permission from the parents.
And are they then pulled out of classes to do that?
They can be, although I will tell you now, especially at the younger levels, they can be, but some of them do lunch bunches. Some of them do it during advisory. Sometimes now, especially with the high school, if you have some kids who aren't in any academic need, you can do it during Panther hours. So luckily, some of our schedules have freed up us some time so that we're not having to do it so much in the regular classroom.
And since we don't review these now, but every 2 years, how do you, one of the things is to know if your lessons are working. How do you evaluate those on an ongoing basis so that if a change needs to happen quicker rather than later?
So we only do this program review every 2
Right.
years, but the counselors do the pre and post every year
Okay.
and discuss it at their case K5 now and 612 collaborations that they do.
Have we seen an increased demand for counseling services at the high school now that we've moved to one building? It is before, even with the two building model that we had, the passing time gave people an opportunity to, whether to cool off, to deflect, to reflect. Have we seen increased use of counselor time at the high school?
I would have to look into it. I do not know that off the top of my head, but I am willing to ask our counselors because they do keep really good records on how many individual visits or group visits that they do.
You know, we've focused for so long to get everybody back in one building. You know, one of the byproducts of that is that having so many people in one building, you know, frustrations and tensions could be higher. And I'm just curious if we're keeping track of that.
Yes, I
Curious
will
of a
get that.
conversation I had outside of here. When a student transfers in, is there any background, if they've had to work with the counselors on maybe issues or something, do those transfer with them?
Personal counselor notes from one school to another do not. If there is, if the school district that the student's coming from, if their counselors tend to use, like enter into the system, meeting logs or things like that, then those kinds of records can transfer. It really just depends on what school district they're coming from.
You've said that the success-ready students will increase from 56 to 76. Is that, it is happening? I mean, it is.
I believe that is a workable goal. As far as we're adding, different IB courses, we're realigning the dual credit to look at an associate's in art, and we are working really hard with our electives to offer more of those industry-recognized credentials. We feel like by 18, 19, we could have enough offerings where that number can continue to go up. And we don't want to stop at 76. We just felt like that's a reasonable goal in 2 years.
And we started offering the Work Keys assessment last year, and we're going to continue to work on that, which will qualify more kids for credentials. And then the other area we may look into is the state now has authorized a career and technical education certification or diploma, if you will, kind of an add-on diploma. And so we're going to start investigating that to see if that isn't another option, because to me, a student who achieves that might meet it as well.
We were just at the Missouri School Board Association convention, and there were a lot of breakout sessions on mental health. Are we equipped to diagnose something like bipolar, or do some kids come in with that diagnosis, and how are we handling things like that?
A vast majority of our counselors are not licensed professional counselors. They're school counselors, so it's a different certification. So no, we are not qualified to diagnose that. However, we do have, obviously families can take them to a doctor, psychiatrist who can bring that diagnosis in. And then as we're aware, families can seek out certain support, whether it be through a 504, perhaps a special ed process. It just depends on what the diagnosis is, where they can get additional assistance for that particular diagnosis.
One of the concerns was just the lack of mental health professionals in the state of Missouri.
That is true. Missouri as a state does struggle with that number compared to some of our counterpart states around us. That Systems of Care group that I referred to is a group that Dr. Volker has put together, and it has counselors from our building, our SROs, but it also has a lot of outside counselors, and Kim Bailey sits on it. That has been a really wonderful beginning of a partnership as far as just discussing how can we all work together instead of working in silos. So that group's going to continue to work to try to bridge some of those gaps on what can we do.
Thank you.
How do we positively help those students who truly just don't know yet what they want to do? You know, because we're so focused on the success ready. What about the ones who really don't, I've got one, doesn't know what they want to do? So how do you make them, how do you make them feel productive and positive in a surrounding that we're saying, you got to be success ready?
I think we can continue to do that while we continue to offer a bigger array of electives, because that is usually where kids find their passion. And they don't always find it in the core. Some of us did, but not all of us. And so I think the more that we can offer different types of electives, and especially hands-on electives, that is one reason why I think Project Lead the Way is very exciting, because it's hands-on and it's got several legs to it, engineering, biomed. So I think we need to continue to look at those offerings to see, because really in a lot of cases, it's one class that a kid took, and then all of a sudden they're like, this is it for me.
I just would hate to see us frustrate a kid even more because they don't feel like they're meeting everybody's goals of this, you need to know this by this date, and if you don't, sorry.
So I think exposure is our best bet.
But, there's still adults that don't know what they want to be when they grow up either, so.
Yeah. Well, if you did notice on the scorecard, we didn't ever get to 100%, because I still admit there might be a couple percents that we just can't quite get to.
Would you, I've received several phone calls of people not really understanding the difference between what a school counselor does and what a licensed therapist or counselor does, that they don't understand the role of a school counselor. Could you differentiate that just for the board and?
Yeah, so school counselors are typically doing individual counseling. A lot of it is supposed to be career focused on, or depending on how old they are, obviously. They are able to do support groups, which is more talking about skills and strategies that students can use. And they're certainly able to help with the development of behavior plans and then ensuring the fidelity and working with even teachers on how to do that, not only for behavior, but also for academic instances. They do help in enrollment and scheduling, although that's often not a part of their formal training. It is definitely something that they do a lot of with knowing that career guide and helping kids with schedules and helping kids obviously march to graduation. And then they do a lot with post-secondary as far as helping kids figure out how to maneuver that college system, which is pretty challenging. And so but they don't do things like deep therapy. They can't do things like diagnosing, and so that is not their role, and that is not their training. But a lot of people do confuse that, but you'd have to be at least an LPC, a licensed professional counselor, in order to do that kind of level of counseling. But
Yeah, I think I've received some phone calls from some parents wondering why the school counselor didn't do counseling and therapy with the clients or with the students, and that's because that's not their job description, that's not their training.
We've had that discussion with dealing with legislators, because they want to legislate some things sometimes that our teachers aren't equipped for those things, and they're not trained for those things, so you can't put those things onto them.
Yeah. So thank you.
When we do professional development, do we provide opportunities for our counselors to increase their skill sets through the professional development, more targeted for them instead of just the general stuff that we do?
yes, and actually, I think that's something that with the exec council has gone really well in the last couple of years. So for example, on this last PD day, we did have someone come in and talk to them about suicide awareness. And so we do pull from our entire counselor group on what do you think you need. And then we also have just had an opportunity, just because there's been some good conferences regarding trauma and suicide awareness and bully awareness, and we will send out a representative with the full expectation that you come back, and in this case, they did on that PD day, and share everything with the entire group. So that is one thing that they feel we do well.
We're getting ready to send one or two to a poverty simulation training as well, see how that affects and impacts children during the school day and what we can do to respond. Sorry. I just was saying here, coming up, there's one or two of our school counselors who are going to attend a poverty simulation leader training so that they can better understand and bring back kind of ways to educate our staff, whether it's other counselors or teachers, about the effects of poverty upon children and learning and what we can do to provide systems of support within the school day related to that.
Any other questions or comments? So I would just like to commend our counseling department. Our counselors are taking a lot of handling a lot of issues that are hard to deal with. And so I want to commend them. They're doing a great job. And you guys, and you're supporting them, are doing great as well. So long way to go, but I think we're doing fantastic with where we're at. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Okay, we are now on summer school recap. Dr. Al Volker.
And Cindy Bias will be assisting as well.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Happy to present our 2017 summer school overview. I really do want to start by just saying thank you to our summer school administration and our summer school staff. They work so hard, and so many of our support staff do as well, because we're talking about serving about 2,000 students now in our summer school program. We serve over a third, right at a third of our students in that process. And as you can see on the enrollment history, the green line is the total enrollment, and look at the trend in the way it's gone. So we've really worked to build a high-quality program, and you have to start with the staff and commend them for the work that they've done in that process. Looking, if we stay towards the top, Michelle, with the actual elementary, middle school, and senior high enrollment, I do want to point out to you the elementary does look quite a jump there. Well, remember, we did add a grade level. So fifth grade is now in the elementary, and that started with summer school. So that's why the elementary looks a little bit higher there. And the middle school looks like it had a drop because middle school actually lost a grade level in that process. We only had 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We didn't have 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade like we did in 2016. A little dip at senior high school, and we're going to talk about a little bit of that at the recommendations and what we're looking for the future. But overall enrollment was really strong at 1974. We can scroll down, Michelle, please. Number of teachers is a little misleading. I'd like to, just to start with that because we do have teachers that share assignments. So we'll have teachers that take 1 2-week, and then we'll have a teacher that shares the same class and takes the second 2 weeks of that. So that can differ by years on teachers that want to share those assignments or teachers that don't. So we did work to keep our class sizes a little bit smaller because some of the feedback from the previous year in 2016 was our class size was starting to creep up. So we set some lower class sizes at each of our grade levels to try and keep that down. And I did hear positive feedback from the teachers as well that they appreciated that. So that was always good. We did send a survey out. We like to survey our participants and just our general community, those that are willing to take it, talking about why maybe they didn't want to come to summer school, they didn't attend. So with that, there were 280 responses to that, with 52 of those being those people that did not attend. So we asked them why you didn't attend in that. So looking at that, talking about the quality of teaching staff on a 5-point scale, very high marks on, and they commend our staff. Quality of administration is the next one, as you can see a trend with these. So we're very pleased when we see enrollment continue to climb and we see our survey results coming back from the people that are participating in our program continuing to show these type of results. We feel like we're headed in the right direction, and we're going to continue that type of programming and just try and make it better. So that's our goal. So if you keep going down to quality of education programming, classes offered during, and then the big question you ask is the overall quality. What do you believe of the overall quality of the summer school program provided by our school district? And those are results. So even if we have, and you see 3 people marked a 1, my question is, well, why did 3 people mark a 1? What can we do to improve? Even though we have a lot of people marking that it's a very high quality program. So looking at that, our summer school team, as we develop this year, are going to take that individual feedback. We're going to come in there and have that conversation. What can we do to improve? That takes us to the 52 people that did not attend, the patrons that didn't attend, and why didn't they attend? So they were allowed to take it even if their children didn't attend summer school, and they could mark multiple. That's why you'll see that number adds up to more than 52. But looking at it, the highest there is my child needed a break from school. Which, you know what? I understand. Yeah. We do have 2 weeks programs and I think just continuing to communicate is a big deal because you don't have to go to the first 2 weeks of summer school. Your child could just attend the second 2 weeks at that elementary level. So if they need what would be a 3-week break, they could do that and still attend 2 weeks of summer school. So just continuing to communicate that, talking to our community. I think our community already knows that. They really enjoy the 4 days a week. They really enjoy the 2-week options. They enjoy the hands-on activities. We've really science, technology, engineering, arts, and math focused lessons. We're going to just continue to work on those. The secondary level, there are things that we've looked at regarding transportation, for example. We're really looking at how we can provide transportation at the secondary level, and that would be at the high school level. How we can do that, what that will look like, how we can communicate that out, what type of resources we'd need to make that happen. So that is definitely a focus for us as we continue to move on. And then looking at expanding online opportunities. That is a real focus. So those are probably, there are many focus areas that we're going to work on. We're always going to continue to work on core level instruction and just make those lessons in the classroom as best that they can possibly be and help the teachers implement them. But then the 2 biggies are looking at online opportunities and transportation at the secondary level. So I'm going to turn it over to Cindy Bias to talk about finances, which is also in a very positive trend. But then, of course, I'll come back and we can talk about any questions that you might have. So, Cindy.
Okay, so you may remember that summer school is not separately funded, but the summer school ADA does fold into the calculation for our basic formula revenue from the state and our Prop C revenue that provides funding for all of our teacher salaries and programs throughout the year. So ADA, while the enrollment overall increased, ADA stayed about the same, and most of that is because of the 2-week programs that Al talked about. It's the magic of the ADA calculation. that stayed about the same. So we can estimate the revenues that this creates in our Prop C revenues and our basic formula revenue, which increased just a little bit this year over last year because of the increase in the state adequacy target and a little increase in the Prop C factor. Overall, our net program revenue is on a favorable trend, and this is because of that small increase in revenues and a small decrease this year in our costs, mostly because of efficiencies that we were able to realize in our transportation line.
Okay, do we have any questions about our summer school program, or really are starting now, developing next year?
How long is summer school?
Well, it is a 4-week program in general. It's 16 days at the elementary level, so we do 4 days a week for 4 weeks. At the high school level, you're looking at 19 days usually is your summer school program. They go a little bit longer to get their seat hours that are required for credit.
Do we have the ability to make it, to offer college courses through summer school that would be an 8-week session?
We are talking about different ways to access some possible college opportunities. So I don't know if I want to answer that right now. And
Fair enough.
I think that we are definitely exploring that.
The online
So-
option would give you the flexibility of not being married to a.
Yeah, we
8-week
might be
calendar
able to
even.
offer it without worrying about the 8 weeks or that amount of time. So we still think that that's something, I can tell you, Mr. Westcott, we're definitely exploring that and trying to, how would we make that work?
Any other questions or comments?
I'll clarify one thing on the finance piece of this, is that money is built into our overall budget, and we rely on that now that we've had this trend with our summer school, that it helps our regular school year budget as well. It's built into the overall budget.
Thank you for working to increase the options so that more kids maybe will find something interesting and do it.
Or be able to attend in general
Yeah,
with
yeah.
transportation?
Do you remember what the numbers were for our average attendance back when we paid kids to come? Are we approaching?
I think you know what, I looked at that at one point in time, and I think we're at closer or higher to that, but it's really close.
Okay.
It's really close. That would be our highest. Remember, we were paying and we had the program, and that program would pay students to attend. I think we're getting very close to that level of attendance.
And that was a point in time where we get to count kids
Yes,
double
double
in
that.
that formula, and that went
Yes,
away
yes.
You're right.
That is not-
2006.
That's
so-
no longer the case. Yes.
My kids loved it because they got $100 to attend summer
Right.
school, and we liked it because they were out of the house
Right.
part of the summer, so it was good. It was a win-win.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're now on American Education Week.
Yes, the American Education Week is celebrated November 13th to the 17th, and since our next board meeting is on the 16th, I thought I'd go ahead and bring that up now. It's a great time to celebrate the quality of public education, our great public schools in the country, and we'll be doing things both at the district and the building levels to recognize our staff, and I encourage the community to say something nice to a staff member at the same time when we get there. So we'll put out more information as we get closer, but I just wanted to bring it up now.
All right, we're now on action items. We're on the audit.
We have Brad Steele from Westbrook and Company, who'll be sharing the audit report with you this evening.
Like you said, my name is Brad Steele. I'm a CPA with Westbrook and Company. We performed your audit this year. I've met with your finance/audit committee and went over the audit in detail. And so I've got just to summarize some of the graphs and some of the things we put in. But if you have any questions, please feel free to stop me at any time and we can discuss those. The first thing I want to point out is the independent auditor report. This is what DESI's going to be looking for, your bonding company's going to be looking for, is the opinion paragraph on page 2. It states, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. It means you had a clean audit. So that's a good thing. The next thing is on page 12. This is a statement of activities. And what this does is shows your governmental activities down on the left-hand side, and then in the middle there, your program revenues that are specifically associated with those activities. So you can see there that transportation, even though you spend $4.5 million in transportation expenditures, you get $825,000 reimbursement from the state. So your true cost to the district is almost $3.7 million in transportation. The next couple, this is your balance sheet showing your cash and cash equivalents, your investments, your assets by fund between the general, the special revenue, debt service, and capital projects fund. Special revenue fund is zero. That's standard. That's pretty typical for schools. That is zeroed out every year with transfers. So that being zero is not any red flags or anything. That's standard. It would typically always be zero. This shows your revenues and expenditures by fund. You can see there your general, special revenue, debt service, capital projects. Then you can see your net change in fund balance at the bottom there. And I'm going through these kind of fast because we got graphs towards the back that kind of summarize this a little better. This shows page 24. This is the notes, and it shows your bonds payable, your lease certificate, your lease participation certificates, and your capital lease obligations for at the beginning of the year, the additions during the year, your retirements, the balance at the end, and then how much is due within 1 year. This is your bonds through maturity, principal and interest payments. And then here's your capital lease obligations through maturity here. The next three are the graphs I was talking about. This shows the percentage of revenue by source. So you can see there you have local, county, state, and federal. And even though your revenue over the last 5 years has went up, your percentage as a source has stayed pretty consistent. And that's pretty typical for schools. You guys are about 55% on the local, and you have county and state and federal. And you notice your county and federal is a little lower, and that's typical for schools. This is your expenditures, same type of graph, and it just shows your personnel costs make up over 70% of your operating budget. And again, that's standard for schools. They're in anywhere from 65 to 75. Some are a little higher, but only a few. But most of them are in that 65 to 75% range. This is probably the most important one, is your reserve ratio. You can see that your reserve over the last 5 years has taken a downturn, but that's planned. We call that, when that's planned, that's okay. So it's planned and reserve ratio. I don't have any concerns with it. You guys have a capable staff and knowing the projections and what it's looking going forward. So there's no concerns there. The average daily attendance, you can see there it's increased this last couple of years, and that's a good thing. We also have to give an opinion on your Missouri laws and regulations with attendance, transportation, budget laws, and there you can see that we gave an opinion and everything was fairly stated in all material respects. This is, we also have to give a report on your internal controls. We don't give an opinion on your internal controls, but we report on them as a way, or we look at them as a way to plan for our audit. If we think you have bad internal controls or not good internal controls in one place, we'll maybe spend more time there. So in this case, as we're looking through your internal controls, we're not giving an opinion, but if we run across a material weakness or significant deficiency, we're required to report on it. And the good thing is we didn't run across any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. This is summarized on right here, the summary of audit results. You can see there you had an unmodified opinion on your audit. That's very good. And the internal controls, the significant deficiencies, your federal awards audit, all of those are none and none reported, which is good. You can see down there at the bottom that when we do your federal programs, we have to pick a program, and sometimes 2 programs or 3 to make up a certain percentage of your federal expenditures. In this case, this year, and those change every year, and this year we had the child nutrition cluster, so your food service program is what we audited this year as part of the federal program audit. And then the auditee qualified as a low-risk auditee, that answer is no. The only reason that answer is no is because you're not on the GAAP basis or accrual basis of accounting. And you're just like 99.9% of all the school districts in the state of Missouri. So very few school districts can mark that yes because they're not following the accrual basis of accounting. And that's what the federal government says. In order to mark that yes, you have to do that. So there's not an issue there, even though it's marked no. So findings and financial statement audit, as far as federal findings, and they're both none. That's a good sign. So the next is a report to administration. I went through each one of these with your with your audit and fraud committee and also your administration. Did you guys have any questions on any of that on the report to administration? Any questions on, any other questions as far as the audit goes?
Good job.
Thank you. Well, and your staff makes it, makes it enjoyable for us to come. And it's not, I know some of you have heard this before, but it's not that way in every school that we go to. And we really appreciate that fact. It's well ran. From a finance standpoint, things are in good order. You're looking into the future. It's not, I never come in here and say, well, here's where your fund balance is, and there's no surprises. They know where they're at when we come in here. But I've been in board meetings before, they had no idea where they were at from a fund balance standpoint whenever we would come for the audit. So we appreciate that fact, that we've got schools that have people in place that do a good job of knowing what's going on, so.
And this is just a question for staff. Some of the minor issues that were identified, do we have plans in place to address and correct all those issues?
Yeah, Cindy's already put a response to each one of those. They've already been addressed.
Well, and I saw the response. I just wondered, was there a time frame for implementation, or are they already implemented?
We report back to the Audit and Finance Committee at the November 14th meeting on
Okay.
everything that's been put in place.
Very good.
And just a quick note on the report to administration. We pride ourselves in giving a report to administration every year, and so if we don't have something in there, we're not doing our job. So if you have a comment or a recommendation, that doesn't mean you didn't have a good audit. That just means, we see things all the time in all the audits that we do, and we'll bring that across to, it may not have been a problem here, but hey, this was an issue we ran across in another school, just a heads up, because you may catch it before it comes to your school, or it may never show up, but we've got those in there just to make you aware of them.
The other thing I would comment is that Cindy and her team do a great job preparing, as Brad mentioned, but it's a lot of other people in the district from the building level, all the departments at this building working together to get the information together so that it's a very straightforward process when they come.
Yeah. And it's not something they just, the year's over, it's June 30, now we get ready for the audit. They're collecting things all throughout the year that they know we're going to be asking for when it comes time for an audit. So they're preparing, all year long. Anything else?
No, I'm one of the weird people that I always look forward to the audit. But the reason why is because I've always viewed it as an opportunity for improvement. Mm-hmm. Most processes, you have them in place and they work very well, but it's nice to have an outside set of eyes to even make a recommendation. Hey, you could do this different, or you might strengthen this area. So to me, it's never something that you don't look forward to. It's always something that it's welcomed, because it's a way to really test your system to make sure that you are doing what you're supposed to do. So
yeah, I always say we're not IRS auditors coming, with the hammer and start hammering on things. We're here to help. We want to help and give ideas, and some ideas may just not work, and that's fine. But we work together to improve it. So
you're the shield, not the sword.
Right.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
I move to approve the audit for 2016-17 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And thank you to all our staff and administration for that. We're now on bus routes. Dr. Brian Pettengill.
His favorite.
And Ruth, I'm still not sure what I want to do when I grow up, so
I don't
there's several of us there.
either.
So,
I didn't want to speak for everyone in the room, but I knew I felt a lot of people were.
yeah, I think we all understand that. The Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education does require local school boards to approve our bus routes. And our routes are obviously established for safe and cost-efficient transportation. The link to the website is up to date as of this week. While we will tweak them a little bit as needed, they're pretty set at this point, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about them.
Has your phone stopped ringing?
It's slowed down.
I know there was a little snafus here and there. Have we been able to resolve most of those?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
We do approve it again at the end of the school year. We'll do that in June as well. So
Is there a
I
motion?
move to approve the bus routes for the 2017-18 school year as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously.
I'll let
Thank
know when
you
I decide
for,
what I'm doing.
I thought
thank
were-
you for all your
I thought
hard
you were
work
going to
on that.
motion that we adjourn the meeting so we could go watch the Chiefs game.
all right, we're at Cass County Kids First Legislative Priorities.
So for the past 4 years, there's been a collaborative effort between the 10 school districts in Cass County. When it first started back in 2014, Ruth Johnson was taking the lead on that, had support of the board at the time, and Jerry Miller, the board member over at Belton, was very involved as well. And so the process has been that we get together each year, we get input, we look at what's happened in the last session, look at what other organizations are having priorities, and we try to come up with a short list that we think is most important for us. And so with that, then we have activities. We're asking all the boards in the county to approve these same priorities with the idea that there'd be a collective effort towards lobbying. And then, Ruth, if you want to add some comments about what we do with that.
Oh, we just go share it with them in nice ways. And it's just, really, it's about having that two-way conversation with them on a year-round basis so that it's not just when we have an issue. You know, it's about having those conversations, what works for us, what doesn't. You know, I've noticed they have been contacting our superintendents more to get input throughout the year and not just whenever there's a big issue. So it's just an ongoing conversation with our legislators. And it's 70 elected members working with our 6. So they get paid a whole lot more than we do.
Yeah.
But we're all elected by the same people, so it carries weight when we take it there.
And we do plan events where we invite the legislators in and meet with boards from across the county. So we'll have those dates out before too long.
Any questions or comments? Thank you, Ruth, for all of your work. Thank you,
Jerry and I
Dr.
do have
Hughes.
some dates. We're going to go talk to some other boards just for more information for them.
Perfect. Does anyone have any questions or comments on this priority list? Is everyone in agreement? Is there a motion?
I move to approve the Cass County Kids First 2018 legislative priorities.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We're now on committee reports. Is there any committee reports?
Strategic Planning Committee's still been very, very actively busy. Our staff has been tremendously busy working on all that, so thank you to all the extra work you guys have done on working on that. We've had great community members on there, just great conversations with them.
Yeah, just to piggyback, I've been so encouraged by, they're very involved with the process. They're very committed to the
Frank.
process. Yeah. So I love the community engagement and involvement on that. It's been really good. Any other committee?
Team Ray-Pec has met, but it's been more update to this point, update on the strategic plan, the other things that are going on. I think the heavy lifting actually starts at the next meeting, so I will keep the board apprised.
Thank you.
Our Wellness Committee has scheduled for the second Saturday in November to have a staff and support staff workout day on the football field to encourage unity and accountability and getting in shape and staying in shape.
Awesome. Anything else? All right, we're on superintendent's report.
So one thing I'd like to report this time of year is our enrollment. And I was estimating around 6,100 last month. So last Wednesday of September's the date we compile our official count, so to speak, and Pam's been working on that. And we are at 6,089, which is 50 higher than we were last year at this time. So if you want to, people ask how much you've grown, it's 50 students. We kind of planned on in our budgeting around 30 students in growth, so it even exceeded that a little bit. I want to thank the board for their participation at the MSBA conference. All 7 board members attended. They gave up a weekend to go down and represent the school district and learn more about their leadership role as board members. Had 4 board members present, Kim York, Kim Bailey, Ruth Johnson, and Ryan Westcote. Appreciate them doing that and sharing their wisdom with the other representatives. There were 1,200 folks at the conference. It's a big conference and a lot of sharing and learning going on there. Ruth also served as our delegate for the board, and as she is the Region 4 rep on the board the board for MSBA, so she had extra duties there as well. And it was nice to have the Daily Grind represented there. Tina Foltz brought 4 of her students, and they showcased their Daily Grind project. There were about 15 or so student projects represented from across the state, and we had one of them there, and they represented very well. We have 2 students that have been commended as National Merit Commended students, Shane Bruflat and Trevor Diepenbrock. So that means they were in the top 50,000 across the country on the PSAT test. So they do a great job. Our student activities are winding down for the fall sports season. Got a lot of great news there. Just a few things I would share is that our soccer team has tied as conference co-champs. The girls cross-country team is also conference champs. Girls tennis won their districts, and they had 3 state qualifiers. Our South Middle School football team went undefeated in their first year, including a victory over East Middle School in the rivalry game. So a great season by them. We have 3 all-state choir selections recently announced, so we'll try to get them here soon for recognition. And the choirs programs at all levels have been performing all over the community, so it's been great to see their activity. Marching band continues to place well at their competition, so all of our activities, including the ones I didn't name, are doing a great job. And I keep reminding folks that participating in those activities help kids do better in school, and we have the data to prove that. So I want to thank the foundation for their showcase event they held on Tuesday, and they awarded 14 impact grants today. Went around and surprised staff, so that was an exciting event. And then related to that strategic planning discussion, we are having our community forum event next Thursday evening, 6:30 at the high school. Invite everybody to come to that. It'll be an opportunity to share feedback and input on the process and the work to date. We're really asking what's next for Ray-Pec. Now that we're done with the construction process, we've got that taken care of. What else do we need to focus on moving forward for the next 5 years? And then I just received word this afternoon that grant application that you approved last month for that culinary enhancement was awarded today by the Greater Kansas City Restaurant Association. So great job by Christina Hawker at the high school for putting that together, and that will help with their catering enterprises and any activities they schedule for that. So great job by that group.
All right. We're now on calendar of events. November 9th, we've got our work session coming up. November 13th through 17th, again, is American Education Week. November 15th is our Joint Cities meeting. If any of you can make it, that'd be fantastic. November 16th is our next board meeting. So.
Board member comment, since you skipped over that.
Oh, did I? Board member comments?
As Dr. Monses was alluding to at conference, how we all did things. I get the opportunity with dealing with people across the state now. We have a superintendent who is highly regarded across the state. And that for me is a very good thing to hear, kind of that little pride factor there coming in. But, when you hear from people across the state how well respected and admired he is, it's a good thing to hear from across the state, because not everybody is as lucky as we are.
That is very true.
I'll pass the $5 to you after the meeting.
More than $5.
Yes. Not to give details, but there were a few times that I leaned over to Carrie and said, thank you for not being somebody who does this.
And it's not always that we necessarily learn something. It's that we're hearing, oh, we're doing something right. And we are already doing that before the rest of the crowd sometimes. So.
Well, and that was even with the outside auditors being here, as we were on the audit finance committee, with us, it's enhancing and fine tuning and honing what we're doing. Whereas everybody else, it's, oh my gosh, why are you doing this? So it's nice to hear that. As Carrie kind of touched on, to watch our students represent their project down there with other districts. Our students really did represent our district well, and they really did do our district an honor. And so it was nice to see them. And I think now that we have 2 middle schools, I think there needs to be like a superintendent's cup, which is the bragging right every year. So it goes between, the school's trophy cases, something that it's the presentation. And so I think it's
point standing for all activities across the schools or something, between the schools. I have to think about that.
Something along those lines. Because it's, or even if the football team wins it, then whatever the next sport is can bring it back, so there's the opportunity for it to go back and forth throughout the year.
That means you'd have to attend every sporting event.
We go to a few.
You might as well just get a cot in your office.
Yes, you do. I agree. I feel as a district, and most of it goes to our administration, staff, teachers. We really do a great job in most, if not all, areas. So I know that our motto is kind of continuing to move from good to great, and I feel like we're already making some steps towards that, but very proud to be a part of this district. And
Yep,
honored.
thanks for your support.
Yep. All right, if there's no other comments, this meeting is adjourned.